if you look at the presentation by Dave now, you can see that there is an organization called DANT that is operating a network called GIANT, and now we are GIANT2, and also it was presenting on other networks that were developed, yes, with the support of DANT. What do we expect Ubuntu Alliance to be is an organization like GIANT. And at the moment, we have 5 countries that are participating in the process. That is Mozambique, South Africa, Rwanda, Malawi, and Kenya, Kenneth. And we also have the support of regional organization, that is SARUA at the moment. And we are all busy trying to create that vehicle that would be the entity that would own the network. So in the network, we decided to call it as UbuntuNet. So UbuntuNet Alliance will operate a network called UbuntuNet. What I really would like to do, especially to my fellow Africans, be the regional associations such as AU, ICA, as well as the African countries that are represented here. First is that there's a need to build NRENs inside the countries. Because if you have seen the presentation that was done by David, usually you have the NREN that connects to the GIANT network and not the individual university. But given the current state of development of NRENs in Africa, what we expect that will happen in the future is that we might welcome, if be or if justified, an individual university to connect to that regional network. So first I would like to reach out on the colleagues from Africa. First we need to develop the NRENs and seeking to invite them to join the efforts of the Internet Alliance, because we think that that's the only way to develop the regional network. But we all basically agree that we need it. We understand that there's a need to have it developed. So this is really a bit to progress to say that this is going on, and we invite the support and participation of all the universities, because we understand that the more we come together, the more benefit we will get each of us. Thank you very much.
One more question.
Sorry, David, our questions are not questions, they're more comments. And that is, as Americo has just said a little bit more about the UbuntuNet Alliance, and you were talking about regional groupings. One of the fascinating things about our small alliance so far is we have Anglophone, Lusophone, Francophone. We don't fit comfortably into any region, and that might be an advantage and it might be a disadvantage. We haven't yet defined our boundaries. So I think it's quite exciting, but even with no with Dante. Thank you very much.
One question at the end.
Ce n'est pas une question, je voulais juste apporter quelques éléments par rapport au projet Honnête Connect, puisque donc, je représente le réseau algérien, ARN, et donc, je remercie David pour sa présentation qui était très, très claire et qui a montré un peu la nécessité de constituer des réseaux de recherche en Afrique et l'utilité qu'on avait à se regrouper autour de projets régionaux pour bénéficier et de sources de financement et de pouvoir être connectés sur d'autres réseaux de recherche. Parce qu'il me semble qu'en Afrique, l'approche de réseaux de recherche est vue uniquement à travers la connexion sur Internet et que les réseaux de recherche ont une autre étendue qui va au-delà de la connexion Internet. Et cette philosophie de constituer des réseaux de recherche reste pour les pays un investissement qui va porter ses fruits à moyen et long terme, mais c'est des investissements qui peuvent être très avantageux pour toutes les universités africaines et autres institutions scientifiques. Et ce que David peut-être n'a pas suffisamment mentionné, c'est qu'au moment où le projet a été lancé, nous avons eu beaucoup de difficultés, même au niveau de notre région, donc même au nord de l'Afrique, même si la fibre est un peu plus disponible par rapport à d'autres pays, et étant donné donc la situation de monopole des opérateurs nationaux, étant donné la non-utilisation et constitution de réseaux de recherche au niveau national, il a été très et de pouvoir trouver des solutions d'interconnectivité au niveau international. Et donc c'est un peu toute cette approche qui a été initiée surtout dans la phase 1, qui a été un travail très laborieux, qui a pu donner des fruits pour la phase 2, donc de réalisation et de concrétisation un peu de nos souhaits. Donc je voulais apporter donc mon témoignage par rapport à ce fameux projet de la communauté.
Okay, one final question.
A very short question, David. Maybe also for the Arab project. How difficult is it really to get an NREL started? Are we perhaps making it more difficult than it is? So what is the minimum requirement in order to get an NREL started tomorrow? Basically, you would not like to do it tomorrow at my university.
We haven't actually created any NRELs. I mean, we have, so I'm not going to, I probably can't answer the question quite as you would like me to. What we have done is we have worked in each case with a designated party in each country. In some cases, there was, I would say that the organisation that we initially were given to work with was possibly not the most appropriate one. I mean, it was, for example, it might, in some cases we were working directly with government departments rather than with a body comprising academic and research interests. And we've tended to, over time though, I mean, I think what we've done is we've supported moves in countries to improve the capability of their NREM, but we haven't actually created them. It seems to me the important thing is to have a body which can represent the single interests. What you don't want is you don't want factions, you don't want competition. You want something that is genuinely trying to do a good job and then work with what you've got and you improve it. I think so. We've been fairly pragmatic about what I'm sure in different countries, different types of organisations may be more applicable. We've tended to work with our partners as best we can. I don't know, Doug, you want to say anything about NRENs?
Well, I can't really say anything much about NRENs because I've never started. But what we're doing really within the Pan-Arab Network is looking at long distance, high-speed telecommunications link between NRENs. So we're not really trying to start anything. We're simply trying to get the tools to the NRENs to allow them to be more collaborative and more efficient in what they do.
Maybe I can add a few words. I mean, one of the things that Terena has been doing for several years is helping, not particularly set up, but helping NRENs to become more established in less developed countries of Europe and in fact beyond. And I can remind you that tomorrow there's an NREN workshop in the afternoon, and I'll be talking about Terena's work in helping less developed NRENs. But in summary, you need consensus in the country from the institutions. You need some funding, central government funding that's sustained at least while the NREN is becoming established. You really need just one NREN per country. I can talk about examples where there aren't. So if you're interested in talking about this further tomorrow afternoon. So do we have any general questions? Actually, you didn't get a clap either. I'm getting really I should get a clap for remembering it. Do we have any general questions to ask these four panel members? Yeah, there's one. There are several actually, so you first. Okay.
I thought we were out of time, but this is not a general question, this is more a specific question. John Mack, I'm here SF program to hook up 2 universities, 2 countries in West Africa using the SAT-3 cable going through GEONT. I've had the pleasure of working with David electronically to hook up Jordan, and so I know how GEONT works, and it's very excellent. My question is, if we're doing this, is GEONT able to step in and assist with bandwidth purchase along West Africa and other parts of Africa?
What the GEONT network is very happy to do is to offer regional projects free peering with the GEONT network, which means that once the connection has reached a point on the GEONT network, you can then access all other parts of Europe through the GEONT network without any additional charge. That is our general policy today. That's what we've been talking to you specifically about, John. In terms of anything more creative, we need to talk about that separately and offline, I think. It's not part of the current policy, but who knows?
Okay, next question from here. And then you can be next.
My question relates to what is happening in West Africa. Since this morning, on the program, we see networks from East, Central Africa, North Africa. Don't see anything in West Africa. What is happening to West Africans? Thank you.
Okay, we have another question from this caller.
Can I respond to that? There will be a panel this afternoon to talk about private for West Africa.
Mine is not really a question, it's a comment. Actually, looking at the number of presentations we've got this afternoon, I think we've got a number of best practices that are taking place in other continents. And also the idea of the partnership that Sandra presented, whereby AVU has been delegated to have specific universities to come up with a bandwidth consortium, which I found very important. So my problem is that at the top side, I think there have been a lot of initiatives that are taking place, while my concern is on the institutional level. Because we haven't been able to integrate the internet into strategic objectives of our universities. So we've taken for granted, meaning that there's much work to be done. And I like the question that was just raised by my colleague from the western part of Africa, and I'm sure the reason is simple, is because universities haven't been able to come together and see connectivity or bandwidth as one of the major challenges that need to be included in strategic objectives. So, again, I'm happy to hear about the AVU initiative and support and the work they're doing. I think if we can go down to institutions, even if we're lacking sometimes resources, but we have to be able to quantify even the bandwidth needed. So I think that's one would be very useful. The second would be to make sure that universities understand that this is part of sustainability of any program that they're running. So there are a number of work that need to be done on institutional level if we want to move up to national, regional, or continental. So that's really something I think we need to consider during this session and the sessions to come. Thanks.
Any further questions?
Perhaps I could just mention something about
one response and then one further question from the floor.
Well, just to mention that I think that's There was already a group of people out there because of Dante and because of the work they had been doing within their own countries on their own university networks, and because of the interconnections through the EMED program. There was already a market for what we were talking about, more bandwidth. That's all we were really talking about. You know, would you like more bandwidth at much less cost? And the answer, of course, was yes. Well, we could figure out 50 different things to do. So, you know, it really gets to the point that you mentioned. If the client isn't knowledgeable about what they would use the bandwidth for, then there's no groundswell of demand to influence governments to want to put it in the agenda. And I think so that really comes down to a very basic thing.
Okay.
This is not a question, it's an answer to what happened to West Africa. The problem with West Africa is they live under the shadow of SAT3. They're okay, they have SAT3. So who needs to help West Africa? This is where you're wrong. My plea is that we do not let the easy cable become another SAT3 cable. Because then the same will happen to East Africa.
Any more questions or comments? This really is the last one because we're currently on time and we can all have a good tea. If you're English, you have that too.
I have been working with the Ethiopians and Nigerians on. While I was in Nigeria, I was really surprised. Before that, in Nigeria, the university is paying $5,000 for the half meg down to 56 up. And in Ethiopia, the university like Dibab University or Bandar University, having only 56 this line, paying $2,000 per month. And World Bank gave about 36 million to have a fiber optic extending from Kenya. And when I was in Dibab University, the nearby high school received about 40 million from the World Bank. And all those 600 high schools in Ethiopia will have visa connections. Well, probably 128 down, 56 up, paying $1,000 per month. 610 makes $500,000, and $7 or $8 million per year. So universities are much less accessibility, and those high schools and the university groups are completely separate under the Ministry of Education. And this is the same in Japan also. So, in addition of those deregulation of the telecom policies, also need to have some regulation intercourse between those different ministries of education, health, and telecoms. And this is really revolutionary paradigm shift, making those bureaucrats. So this is the new way of the new 21st century is coming. And especially we are working with those universities get the Japanese government fund. Those government fund is the Japanese taxpayers' money, about 50 million a year per project. So it has to go through government channel on the receiving end also. So we have to get the people together to have a coalition between each country of the higher education and healthcare and high schools and so on. So we need to have a really restructuring of the society and bureaucrats. My comments and thoughts.
Okay, thank you. I would like to wrap up this session now. Once more, I would like to remind people who are interested in setting up or improving an NREN about the NREN's meeting tomorrow afternoon. If you want to attend that, there's a board at the back on the, well, it's on my left-hand side. If you're interested in talking about NRENs or with NRENs in greater detail, Torino is running an NRENs conference, and there's some information about that. The conference is in May next year. It's a 3-day conference in Italy, so you're quite welcome to come to that and pick up one of these information sheets. And with that, I'd like to thank the panelists for a very interesting conversation. There'll be a report generated overnight for discussion in the plenary tomorrow. So thanks to all the speakers. Thank you.
So we'll see you back here at 4 o'clock. It's a little longer break this afternoon, 25 minutes. Just a couple of comments. One about what's going on in West Africa. OSI West Africa, or OSIWA, is organizing a workshop on affordable bandwidth for West Africa, and it's in Dakar. It's November 30th to December 2nd, and it's an invitation event, but if you're interested, contact Stéphane Robert, who's waving his arm there. And also we have a particular interest in this workshop in actually supporting a university component of that in that workshop to directly lobby SAT3 for special dispensation, if you like, or for more open access for universities. We call it free SAT3. My colleague
there was a question about what we've done about drawing or finding fibre in West Africa. Well, I want to say that there's a middle page pull-out on fibre optic cable and other networks in our latest Acacia Atlas, which is being launched here. I have very limited numbers of them with me. They're actually at our exhibition stand. So this is a calling card for you all to please go to the CRUM and visit the Canada and IDRC and Industry Canada and so on stand at the CRUM. There are 1,000 copies. They're more than enough to take home. And at the back of this book you'll find, actually the infrastructure that this is a collaborative project, by the way. Many other interested parties have funded maps, and we've been able to print them here. So you'll find NEPAD interests, Orbicon, and so on. A whole lot of synoptic information about not only telecoms in Africa, but even the ATIC survey you'll find is the ATICS and Paran survey is on the back page here, showing you where the universities are, where the networks are, and it'll give you a whole lot of information. A picture tells 1,000 words.
Right, T-Sign.
Or that, we requires bandwidth that you really can't tend to pay for. So we're always trying to over-provision everything that we do on the US side. And so when we talk about these discussions, it's about, is it just about bandwidth and just about the internet? Or is it really about creating this collaboration community and enabling the universities to do things that they might not even try under the current conditions of such limited and expensive bandwidth? And so what we're looking for is how can we move beyond the incremental approach and position, from our perspective, help position as much as we can to leapfrog and be positioned for the future, that in a sense, if all you looked at is current usage, so when you hear numbers like 10 times the current level of capacity, that isn't enough. We should be looking at 1,000 times the current capacity or whatever. So that's the perspective that we bring. And in a sense, it's reflected in what the National Science Foundation US is looking for. So we all know that the connectivity is poor. that's why we're here, among other things. But the sad thing is that it's widening, and because of this, we're in this endless loop of, the chicken and the egg. Without that kind of bandwidth, it's difficult to build the human capacity that then makes more of that possible. And so we just looked at one opportunity. I just throw these in because we have all kinds of things that we look at that show the disparity between the kind of connectivity we talk about in US and Europe and the connectivity possible or the cost of connectivity in Africa. And the kinds of throughputs. I wanted to highlight some measurement statistics that Les Cottrell at the Stanford Linear Accelerator generated. This is the high energy physics community, which is very interested in their collaborations around the world, and certainly the low levels of dial-up. But see, it's more than that, and if you look at this particular slide that's generated, I keep wanting to highlight this, but you see that green line that says Africa. The problem is based on these measurement statistics in comparison to what's happening in other regions and countries around the world, is that slope is falling further behind. And so we're trying to find a way to do something about that. So, but see, it's not just about bandwidth, it's really about the performance and the capabilities for future development, economic opportunities through technology development and transfer. And when you look at, beyond just the issues of how much bandwidth, what does it cost, if you look at packet loss, which is about quality of transmission, we see there are issues where there are measurements available in Africa, but also issues of round-trip times, which really is about delays, and it really is about the kinds of applications you can undertake, particularly if you're trying to be part of a global research community, that those delays, and certainly this is about one of the issues with only satellite connectivity and why we're focused on trying to bring the cable capacity in and see what we can do to stimulate the development of the cable infrastructure. And so if you look around Africa, see, if we only talk about Internet 2 and NRENs and don't think about access to that research community, and so whether we're talking about, I think John's comment back to David West in the previous session about connectivity to GÉANT, which gets us into the European community through the peerings to the rest of that research community. This is all very important, and it's all about things beyond email and voice over IP, but it's about high definition video and connection to the physics databases and the ability to control and access the databases associated with some of that instrumentation. And so from our perspective, again, in the US standpoint, we look at where are the collaborators that we can connect with around the world. And that's the NSF interest, is how US researchers can connect and collaborate with their partners around the world. So there are all kinds of visuals, but one, I don't think we've seen this here yet today, but one that we look at internationally from a research perspective is the movement toward wavelength, or what we call lambda level networking. This is 10 gigabit per second optical wavelengths, and something called the GLIF, the Global Lambda Integrated Facility, and light paths. And this, you can see the large number of links that are now evolving between US and Europe, US and Asia Pacific. And one that isn't quite at that level, maybe moving towards its 1 gigabit, moving to 2.5 to Latin America, you see, and one going across Russia that isn't quite that level yet, but see nothing in Africa. So if we just do bandwidth buying consortia, we'll have done something important, but it will not have gotten to the point where African institutions can participate in this kind of evolving next generation experimentation that's going to be important out into the future. So from IEF perspective, what we've been doing is trying to partner with the private sector to generate these donations, which we then turn around and make available to what we call stewards. We don't build networks, we don't run networks through the IEF, we simply try to get these donations. And so we like to say we have no home territory, we have no turf. It is global, and it's all about partnerships. And we've been successful in getting 10 gigabit donated capacity from US to Europe and US to Asia Pacific, and we're looking at going beyond that. And we like to think about what our efforts are is each of us is, in US, there's this term called a quilt, which is patches of material that are stitched together. And years ago, it used to be by, people in the community coming together. So we talk about what we're trying to do is help stitch together these patches of effort that we're all contributing around the world until we have this quilt or network of networks that connect us all together for collaboration. And one of the examples I like to highlight in this is Jun Murai at Keio University in Tokyo, who's our partner there. We're established with that link, the Tokyo Lambda Exchange. And then, as part of his efforts that he's been involved in for quite some time in what they call the WIDE project and School of the Internet, reaching out to other countries around the region, there's been an initiative launched in Thailand to link up with 10 gigabit connectivity as an economic development project linking up the region in the Mekong Delta region, they call it the Mekong sub-region, to create what they call the Lambda or wavelength-enabled ICT development corridor. Now, as we were engaged in this about a year ago, the National Science Foundation came to us and said, well, we're launching this program of what we call IRNC, International Research Network Connections, to Europe, to Asia Pacific, South America, and through the Gloria ring to China and Russia, which also includes Korea. But we don't have anything to Africa. Is it possible what you're doing could work in Africa? And we said, well, we don't know. Let's if you give us a little money to fund the effort, initial effort, we'll give it a try. So we launched this effort in about November of last year, and one of our team members is Timothy John Mack, who spoke up a little while ago. One of our other team members is George Sadowski, is actually here in Tunis, but he's somewhere with the Swiss delegation right now, who's paying his way here, so he has to be with them. So, but otherwise, he would be here as well. And the individual I mentioned earlier, Ed Fonagrassi, who's the private sector individual that was the reason we founded this, and his team. And so we've been studying this, and we're very close to getting the actual grant to do this turned back into the OSEF, which then has to go through the NSF reviews, and hopefully then it'll get approved and funded. And we're talking a target of approaching $2 million a year for 5 years for this project. And I want to emphasize it has to be a proposal, so this is not a funded, guaranteed project yet until we turn this in and they judge the results. But we've gone through and we've been interacting with the various communities on both sides of the ocean, getting letters of support, negotiating the bandwidth, which is the frustrating part, and putting together the plan to get this in. And we have sort of a short-term and a long-term strategy. The short term says use the NSF money, buy as much capacity as we can, create a beachhead, get started, and then move on from there. And the long term is to continue the IEF kind of activity in parallel to getting this up and running. And we already have donation of WiMAX equipment to extend this around what we call the technology exchange point, and we are working on fiber donations. We have one commitment that is in what I call tentative written form yet, so until it's fully finalized, I can't really say much about it. That could involve several countries with donated fiber. And the way we worked at this is we identify a lead institution in each site. And by the way, I think I forgot to mention our first two targets because of where the SAT-3 cable goes are Senegal and then Ghana. So we worked to establish a technology exchange point and then work to reinforce or establish if needed, but mainly to reinforce the evolving NREN activities within that area. And from an NSF perspective, I have to keep saying to reinforce these exchanges on the research side between US and Africa. And then through these partnering efforts, look how our efforts can tie in and support and link up with the other initiatives that are in the region, because bringing 1 or 2 connection points into Africa doesn't solve much of a problem, but it provides an opportunity. And at our current pricing level, what we're looking at is initially a 45 megabit connection coming into Senegal. And we'd like to emphasize we're not trying to do anything that's competitive or undermining the private sector, but if you like right way, it reinforces and helps create new opportunities for the private sector. So this is what we're trying to do. Stage 1, we come in with a submarine cable landing site. And we say from Amsterdam because we tend to think of that as the primary exchange point in Europe, but it's really, as John said, we've gotten the commitment from Giant to do that either through Madrid or Lisbon, through the SAT3 cable, and then from the cable station to establish this technology exchange point at the local university there, use WiMAX to extend beyond that, but then work to collaborate to connect up to the other universities and hospitals within that region, and then go beyond in what we call in stage 2, moving on to try to work out the connections across the border to the next country. And in the technology exchange point, we view this as an opportunity to not only just connect universities, but hospitals that do things in telehealth, telemedicine, and what we call global medical research exchange. But also, in the same sense we do in the U.S., looking at this where the universities are experimenting and trying new approaches that maybe the telecom cannot do, is that there's an opportunity for the telcos to partner in what we sort of call like a barter mode, in which in exchange for enhanced access to other capabilities they have, they also have access to partner with the universities that are collaborating at that site. And then the idea of extending and creating additional exchange points. And we tend to say the TEP because it's not just an IXP, it's about research and education networking. And in the, we tend to call the Internet 2 context. And ultimately this will be helpful or succeed if we are able to appropriately harmonize what we're doing with the other efforts within the region so that it links up and is supported with those efforts. And we were asked to say a little something about, I guess, what the challenges were and what the successes were. And from our standpoint, as we've tried to engage in this, and this is no surprise, there are lots of efforts, and it's oftentimes hard to identify what are the key collaboration opportunities, and communication and coordination with so many things going on is the hard part. And the long timelines to get the information and get the agreements in place. We thought we were going to have this proposal back in July. Well, this is November and still counting. And the issues of the strong protectionist policies with the local telcos and the local politics that reinforce that. And then what I tend to call the secret clubs. In this case, it's the SAT3 consortium. And, the one that everybody's trying to find a way to stop it from being the same with the EC consortium. It's very difficult to even figure out how they operate, let alone how you really negotiate with them. And from the standpoint of the kind of thing that we've tried to do with generating the donations, the level of opportunity for the international business drivers that allow us to help drive these donations is not at the same level. And therefore, the opportunity to tie into that and create this, what we call the sustainability equation is quite different compared to other areas. And so we've tried to develop these strategies that say we can help because the team that we bring to bear with our private sector partner has international telecom and banking industry and other relationships around the world that can bring to bear to help on the economic equation with the telco partners. And the experiences that we've had in working with other partners can think those come to bear, but from the success standpoint, it's hard at this point to really point to the real success, except that the prices that we currently have are almost an order of magnitude lower what we were given initially when we started this with the price book. And from any of the published numbers that I've seen of what people are getting for capacity, we're significantly lower than anything that I've seen for cable access. I said we have the WiMAX and some of the fiber donations in place, but till we get that proposal and get it funded, I think we look at this, we don't have the success we need to go that next stage, but we think we're very close. And our vision for what we're trying to do is simply be helpful and help see if we can't stitch together one patch or a couple of patches, and working with our colleagues in Senegal, Ghana, and around Africa. And it's all about those partnerships. So we like to say IF has been successful in getting donations in 17 time zones, but it's only because working with partners who help and bring the right approach to bear. So that's sort of where we are with our project.
Thanks, Tom. I think this is a major challenge for West Africa. Perhaps the next meeting organized by OSIWA, that Steve mentioned a while ago, I think will be very useful, because the policy and the regulatory framework in the region and lobbying SAT3 is, I think, a critical, one of the critical issues. Question for Don?
Simple question. When you came to Accra to solicit for support and went back, we didn't hear from you. I want to know whether you had enough support or it's hoping to get more support from you.
So your question was when we came to Accra, which means when John and George and Tom Durkin and Don Ben from Geo came. So just to clarify, I wasn't there. We had asked for support, and we did get, I think, enough for what we need with NSF. And what was important was that we demonstrate that there is support at the governmental level, that there's support from the appropriate partner in the region, and that what's really critical from our National Science Foundation standpoint is that we have letters of support from U.S. researchers who are collaborating with colleagues in Africa, and particularly in this case with the initial situation with both Senegal and Ghana, for how this kind of connectivity will enhance their research. So we needed to have that balance of support, and we think we have that.
Thank you, Eddie.
And while he's coming up, you can see U.S. National Science Foundation is very limited in mission by the U.S. Congress in terms of what kinds of things they can support. And that's why this science and this research thing are so important in the way we write this proposal to them, as opposed to if you were doing it to USAID or some other agency.
I just want to contribute to what he has said. In Ghana, we've already got a fiber link ring, which was put up by Voltacom almost 10 years ago, linking Accra to Kumasi, back to Takrady and Accra. Unfortunately, due to the high cost of slots, most of the universities, particularly the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology and Legon, were actually finding it difficult to be linked to this fiber network. Should there be that possibility that you could negotiate with Voltacom, they can give some educational concession that you can link Legon to Kumasi, which is about 300 kilometers from Accra. That
much. Any other? Okay. I think we'll move to the next presentation. The next presentation will be by Harald Holt on the African University Network. The United Nations University, in collaboration with the European Organization for Nuclear Research and ITU, has been actively engaged in the promoting of African University Network. I think we would like to hear the progress on that project. Well,
thank you very much. I would like to pick up on where we left when we left the workshop at CERN at the end of September, where many of you participated. We have since then been struggling with the same questions as Don has presented to us. And you will see from my presentation that we have come down on slightly different conclusions on some issues, that we have a larger focus on some other issues than what Don presented. Now, this work which I'm going to present to you now has been conducted by Professor Oliver Popov, who is presently the CEN network president, and he would dearly have liked to be here to present it himself, but unfortunately he could not come here. This work has been conducted in collaboration with the United Nations University, with the ITU and the CERN. And the work has been funded by NORAD. I should also say that the UNU GBU, which I am representing, is established in Norway, and we are focusing mainly on content development and content aspects, running joint programs, educational programs between the North and the South. And our motto is e-learning for a sustainable future, indicating that the content issues that we are concerned about are environmental issues and sustainable development. AFUNET is an open and joint initiative, and as I said, it is a collaborative effort by the United Nations University and the ITU and the European Centre for Nuclear Research. It builds on many existing efforts and projects within the international community, and we are definitely not trying to invent the wheel again. Our mission is to build and support network infrastructure and services to the educational research community. It is also to improve and develop national and transnational educational and research programs. So this is very much more than connectivity, about connectivity and about bandwidth. And our approach is to start small with a pilot and then grow gradually from there. We have actually had 3 workshops on this issue, one in Arendal